Well everyone, the Linux transition video is finally here after a couple of months since I announced it in the 9070XT transition video. And truth to be told, this is a personal failure of mine when it comes to transitioning to Linux. So in today's video I'd like to discuss why Linux isn't really ready for its prime time and why this is not really the Linux year yet. So without further ado, let's jump into this. Hello everyone, Chris back again with you on Being Unleashed. It's finally the time to talk about my Linux transition project, the thing which I've announced since I've tried and switched to AMD Radeon graphics with a 9070XT video respectively. As you know, Windows 10 is basically deprecated by Microsoft, with it being basically shut down by October 2025, yet they still got some extended support when it comes to overall just logging into the account, basically harvesting your data, so you can have more updates for the poor operating system. So with this prelude, let's actually delve into why my Linux transition has failed and what I'm going to do next about this, and also tell you why it's not really the year of the Linux yet, as it still has some growing pains overall to its experience. So I'm not gonna be very technical when it comes to this video overall, cause let's be honest, a lot of nerd stuff, it's not really my type of jam here. However, I want to say what kind of distros I was using for Linux to attempt to do this switch, as well as what has happened trying to install these things. First time I've actually tried Linux was actually, not gonna lie, it was Arch Linux. Yes, I was a mad lad that was actually following like 40 to 50 minute guidelines on YouTube on how to install this software. After all, I wanted to know how to operate with Linux, how the modules are being selected, how the modules are being installed, and what they are doing in general. Of course, that was very overkill. I did manage to boot up an Arch operating system, but unfortunately I was missing quite a lot of thingies there, and I didn't know how to basically install a lot of things. So that was one of my personal failures, and that was, I think, in 2022 when I first actually got serious about switching to Linux. Let's start first with Mint, the first distro which I've actually installed on the PC, and it was also a failure. Why it was a failure? Well, I installed it on the AMD Radeon system. I got myself an RDNA GPU since I know RDNA is actually working very well with Linux. Lo and behold, I install it on Mint and it simply doesn't work. So I have the processor working, but the graphics card, it says AMD Radeon stuff. So Chris from the past is going to take it from here and show you the process and basically overall what the hell was happening there. It's called a Bazzite, but it has like a lot more on it, so it's actually a couple more distros. It's doing a couple of reboots. I'm not sure what's gonna follow up now. It should just fire up. Windows is loading files. Wait, I think this is... No, this is on Windows 7. Fuck, I forgot. Sorry boys, this is Windows 7 right here. I didn't mean to actually fire up Windows 7, so might as well just do a blooper on that thing.
A few moments later.
So here it is. This is the USB which I prepared. Unfortunately it's only 42 gigs, so I only got about 3 distributions installed on this thing. So yes boys, I've been actually requested to use Ventoy instead of just Rufus, cause this one is actually better for installing Linux. I'd like to say thank you everyone for the input when it comes to distro switching. I've been recommended Pop OS, Nobara OS. I've seen a couple of other distros also recommended, just like Bazzite. So yeah, this is Linux Mint. Now all we have to do is just fire this thing up. So yeah, install multimedia. I might install those because I do plan sometimes to install DaVinci Resolve. I might as well just try it for Linux, why not? So we're gonna do that. So here are the SSDs which I've got. You can see, unfortunately, because the resolution is kind of fucked up, I'll try to change it real quick. So see, this is why it kind of sucks to have ultra-wides. Look at this stretched nonsense. Oh well, it is what it is. So SDB1 is a USB. SDA, I guess this is the hard drive, which I can do. I just had to press a couple of buttons and Linux Mint is now installing. I'll have to wait just a little bit until everything is set up, and then I'll try to mess around with Windows, because again I do have the need for dual boot. So I'll wait until everything installs, then I'll fire up the installer for Windows 10. Okay boys, so looks like everything has been installed. Now you can just click restart now, and I should be firing up straight into Linux. And we're in Linux Mint, although I still have my screens disabled for some reason, so... Okay, now to actually search how do I enable the other monitors, cause it's weird, we don't have any of them. So for some reason it says I have an AMD ATI device 7750, which is weird as heck. It's so weird to see like it's AMD ATI. Yeah, so it looks like I don't have a RDNA 4 firmware. That's what it says. Looks like I have something missing from the kernel. That's why it's not reading at all my 9070. Instead it writes this as like an AMD ATI device, which is weird. So I found looks like there is a new version called Linux Mint Zara. I'm going to install it right now. It probably will fix the issue because again I don't have like two monitors working. It's just my main one. Oh no! It's still not showing up, seriously? Oh, that sucks. Короче, breaking out the персонаж из-за хуйта, бля, и реально not splash RDNA 4, бля. Я просто ищет просто, бля. Я могу копу, бля, с Linux такой, да я не работаю, иди нахуй, бля. So I see right now Mesa. Oh, and there it crashed again. For some reason this one just keeps on crashing. It's weird as hell. See, like security Linux firmware just keeps on crashing. So this is going to be a close-up now. So this is the failed to download package for some reason. As you can see, my monitors are not firing up at all. And it says AMD ATI device 7550 for some reason. So yeah, I guess on Linux Mint it's not gonna work, unfortunately. So I'll probably just try Bazzite, because again, I need my monitors. If it's not working, what's the purpose of having three? So... Well everyone, I think this is going to be it for day one, because I don't have a lot of free time to actually manage this thing. Thankfully I still got my main PC running properly, so I'll come back to it and try another time to see if anything is installing, so yeah. Okay boys, change of plans. So since Linux Mint didn't really work, I'll try to do the dual boot thing, so I'm not gonna suffer for going through Linux, just missing that thing. I'm going to try to have the dual boot working using Windows 10 and Linux Mint. Then if Linux Mint doesn't work, I can just simply nuke it and install Bazzite. So I'll be switching now to actually installing Windows alongside it. I've been searching about this topic when it comes to basically 500 internal server error, and apparently there's nothing showing up. Everyone says just, yeah, try to switch a source, or if not, to just wait it out. Yes. So that was my second failure when trying to switch to Linux once again. So I bought myself a Radeon GPU, which is known to work just fine with Linux. After all, the drivers are made in Linux especially for AMD. I install it and it simply refuses to work. I tried to install patches. Apparently you even need to mess around with kernels and stuff, which is way out of my league. After all, I'm just a simple user. I'm quite a power user when it comes to Windows, but for Linux I'm a complete newbie, and to research hundreds of years of forums just to install, let's say, a kernel, an experimental one to have RDNA 4 work on it, yeah, that's kinda not good, let's be real with that. And Bazzite unfortunately has basically destroyed any attempts of having this thingy work at all. So I'm going to show you some footage from the past right now, so Chris from the past, here we go again. Okay everyone, so unfortunately with Linux Mint it's a bust, thing is simply not working. That's why I've decided, you know what, let's actually ball with it and install Bazzite. For some reason Boot Manager says it's on XPG, but in factuality is on my 990 Pro. So yeah, looks like this is the boot option. We are going to switch to this one on Ventoy, and I'll switch to Bazzite. And apparently it actually woke up and fired up my laptop version. It was only displaying 3 of them initially, but now it shows 4, which is quite interesting. Okay, so now we got all 3 monitors, it's basically duplicating. It's already a better start than whatever the hell was that. Okay, I need to select an installation procedure. I think I'll go with mine. Current Bazzite software selection requires 10 gigabytes, of course. See, so looks like it says Linux Mint. I could just delete all. Okay, so looks like it shows everything that I needed. Language support is here, internet is here, internet user creation. I should create a user, so let's go with it like this. Yes, I'm gonna use this password, very sad. So looks like it detected Europe Chisinau, and looks like we are good to go. So I'm not sure how it's gonna partition. Again, I chose Gamix. Hopefully it's not gonna mess with my Windows. Fingers crossed. So let's begin installation. Okay, so I guess this is going to be once again a white screen where it's going to load things up, so I'll be back once it finishes, boys. See you in a bit. Ека, бля, спер Bazzite, ну кащи, сука, виндава, бля, ман заебет, что виндава, супун, бля, инкодацию моя инсталлиза по рупоули, бля. Fatal error. Просто nice, блять. Короче, ну, я импрессия Linux, ну, вреб компуиста. А шево импрессия реально, ну, вреб, блядь. Фут ездит. Ой, бля, закрывай это говно, нахуй. Сенсорик виндау инсталлату, бля, лету дииста, бля, почему-то. Со инсталлата не дебилиста. Cum pot eu cumva să repar, блядь, să pun флешка, și să încerc să repar Windows, bля. Vesel și posta asta 2 ceasuri și-a instalat Windows 10, numai că să-i pun iobanei Bazzite, Bazzite să fută crash, să șteargă nahoi bootloader-ul la Windows, bля. Ai, și căcat de câine, bля.
Happy Friendiversary.
Softul, proiectul cu Linux-ul, bля. Pe dar ăsta nu șters boot-ul, bля, nu șters asta. În principiu, gaming.
The next day.
Hey everyone, Future Chris here. So yeah, unfortunately my first attempt at installing Linux has absolutely failed. I'd say even to a spectacular level. So I've tried to install Linux Mint, I did install it, but unfortunately it didn't recognize my GPU and said it was like an AMD HD 7550 for some reason. Yeah, that was a weird bug. By the way, boys, Windows 10 wasn't without its flaws. Unfortunately, I had a bug where it simply said we couldn't detect any storage, some drivers related to Intel Rapid Storage. Oh my god. So I had to use a USB to basically copy those. I did install it, everything ran fine afterwards. Then I tried to install Bazzite and that thing simply crashed on me. Midway through it just crashed and it nuked my bootloader for both Windows 10 and also for Linux Mint. So when I was firing up the PC, the OS wouldn't run, not even Windows 10. I tried to repair the bootloader, it simply refused. Bro, straight up не снеси Windows нахуй. Бля. Дик по-моему в винда не дату error cut, то блядь, Bazzite все, бля, рамас в винда. So yeah, it basically was a clusterfuck. I've destroyed 2 Linuxes and I've also nuked my Windows 10 installation, which I wanted to have it in dual boot. So because of these, I've decided, know what, let's actually hang out the code just a little bit, so I'll rethink my plan. So I guess I'll have to just basically sacrifice this PC. It's gonna run on Windows 11. It's unfortunate that I'm not gonna use an AMD GPU for Linux, but for some reason it's simply not recognized by the system. Again, Bazzite crashed on me. That one Linux Mint simply didn't update. Thankfully my main PC was still working, so I could restore it quickly, but the second one is still toast. It does run, but again it has Windows 10 with all of those, you know, older drivers with Nvidia stuff. And as you boys recommended me, I have to basically nuke it and reinstall everything from scratch. Catch you next time when I actually do the thing and install Windows 11 and of course actually installing Linux on my main PC.
Several days later.
Apparently 9070 XT doesn't have support in Linux Mint. Even in this new version apparently it's still not supported, so you need to download some sort of kernel for you to basically have the drivers working for the 9070. So talk about being lucky just ordering this thing and actually doing a Linux switch. Another update which I have is my USB, this one right here where I had my Linux installs. It basically got destroyed and corrupted by Ventoy. I have no idea how and why, but yeah. I can no longer use this USB, it's basically trash at this point, so I can use just eject USB disk. So this flash drive is absolutely cooked. Unfortunately, I have lost this flash drive to Ventoy, which is, I guess, very unfortunate. So I'll be using this flash drive right here. It's a good old Toshiba from 2012 or something, so it's about 13 years old at this point. Okay everyone, so this is how the partition is going to happen. Apologies if you see some shaky movements on this camera, I'm trying my best to record with the phone. So, Windows is going to remain the same thing. On this one I'll be installing Windows 11. On this one final blade, it's still going to remain my production SSD, so nothing is going to happen for it. Recorder is going to stay the same, I'm just going to copy all the footage recorded on my gaming PC over on this SSD, and just overall keep editing stuff using the dual boot on my main PC now. Data is going to remain the same thing, and games, this drive, instead it will be replaced with Linux. And yeah, that's how basically the partition is going to happen on this one, so it's going to be quite interesting. Before I move on, I also would like to show you the system specs. So I got a Ryzen 9 7950X. It's the usual when it comes to production stuff. Unfortunately, the graphics card is going to be a 4090. I mean, you might be surprised saying like, why you are saying unfortunately on a 4090? I wanted to have feature the 9070 XT, but I'll go with the 4090 for this one. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see how an Nvidia GPU, especially a 4090, works on Linux. So yeah, it was quite infuriating to see Bazzite just simply crash and it basically nuking all of my storage. So I had my Windows 10 there, I had my Linux Mint there, even though it wasn't recognizing the driver, it still was working. Bazzite simply crashed it and basically destroyed everything, so I couldn't even boot into Windows, I couldn't boot into even Mint. So the bootloaders got wiped, and I somehow managed to salvage the data by simply pulling out the SSD, using an adapter such as this one, some cheap Chinese garbage, just insert the SSD here and you make a backup of everything. So yeah, that was the third failure when it comes to overall Linux experiment, which was very infuriating, let's be real. I bought an AMD GPU only for it not to work. So yeah, on my main PC I've decided, you know what, let's actually split up a couple of SSDs and install Linux on it respectively. Afterwards I plugged the USB, I did create a live boot with Ventoy because people were recommending me to try out this software. So I did use Ventoy, I created the partitions respectively with all of the Linux distros. I plugged it into the PC and I've installed Bazzite. Okay, here we go, so looks like it's firing up just fine, it was fine just selecting that first partition. Okay, so fingers crossed this time around I don't see any of that nonsense related to the last time. So now let's switch back to the tripod and I'll follow up the installation properly. Again, I do not want Windows spyware on my system, so I'll be completely pruning everything which is related to Microsoft. So this PC is never going to stop with these kind of surprises. Now again, we got another error in trying to install Windows 11 this time around. Huh? Okay, so... what? I'm just confused at this point. What the hell is going on? Yeah, it just baited me, by the way. Yeah, now it's installing. I'm genuinely confused as to what's going on anymore on this system. By the way, boys, this is my first ever time installing Windows 11, and it's weird to see it run like this. Oh. Oh. This thing really baited me, I swear. God, this is so slow. I actually installed Linux faster previously than this pile of shit. Ah, fucking finally. Alright, boys, I'm gonna use some of those classic swear words. This piece of shit, I had to wait 40 fucking minutes for it to download all of that dog shit. And I just decided, you know what, let's just unplug everything. I plugged everything started working fine. Now let's quickly grab Talon and let's actually install everything. As you can see, bullshit from Microsoft. I do not want anything. There's also apparently a Talon Lite, which is quite interesting, but I'll go with this one. So let's go with the classic. Finally, we can run Talon and actually debloat this piece of shit. So I'll go with Brave, per usual, and of course donations, all that stuff. I might consider it. So yeah, now we just have to wait for Talon to basically do everything. As you can see, everything is just running in the background. Can't wait for Windows 11 to be absolutely debloated so I can finally use this PC properly. So yeah, everyone, this is going to be it for this side of things when it comes to Windows 11. Now Chris from the future is going to take over and I'll finally mess around with Linux, actual Linux distro on my main PC.
1 hour later.
Alright everybody, so here is Narration Chris here. I'm going to actually just skip all of the blabber which I've recorded on this footage and I'll show you everything how I installed the Bazzite on it. So I'm going to fire up Ventoy and as you can see I've installed quite a lot of them on this USB. And now let's fast forward quickly to how I set up basically the hard disks, the partitions for this Bazzite install respectively. So I've been following a tutorial, an official tutorial from the Bazzite website, so instead of, just doing everything on my own, I've decided to follow a tutorial for once. With everything done, I can just click install and it should start installing everything. And thankfully this time it didn't crash, now it actually just installed fine without any issues. Now for the most important part when it comes to overall secure booting, cause it's required for Windows 11, I'm going to actually enroll some keys which are also provided with the tutorial, so I'm just quickly going to write the password there and basically activate this whole thing so we can have secure boot enabled with Bazzite. With everything done, as you can see, it fired up just fine, as you can see the logo of the Bazzite and of course everything is installing there. Last but not least, I had to check if everything was set properly for the display, so I checked the refresh rate and of course the resolution respectively and the way they are sorted. And that is basically it, I've installed Bazzite. Now let's fast forward to the future Chris so we can wrap up this content. So I installed Bazzite on the work PC and it was already plagued with issues. I did have a couple of kernel panics. The PC I was trying to do something in Bazzite. I think it was an update or something. I pressed the update, the screen started flickering and just shut down. So I did have some kernel panics. I did Google up to see what the hell was that, and that was a kernel panic. KVM also requires a pass-through and it's very hard to do so, especially if you got a single GPU. Thankfully this main PC does have like a Radeon graphics backup and integrated graphics, but still just trying to pass through GPU and have only a single screen working, yeah, it's not really worth the pain for me personally. What killed this experiment basically was me doing actually a dual boot with Windows 11. And let me tell you, Windows 11 is not much better. I did use a tool to basically debloat this thing. It was called the Talon. It basically made Windows bare bones, plus I applied some tweaks from Chris Titus Tech. Yes, I understand, I was going against, the argument of trying to do Linux on this thing. But again, there are some softwares which are quite important for me, for example Adobe Suite. I do have some other proprietary stuff which is exclusively to Windows. So after using Windows 11 for a couple of days, I understood, yeah, this ain't it, chief. So I rolled back to Windows 10. I understood very clearly that I might lose support for software and stuff like that. But honestly, I do not care anymore. Windows 11 is such a bloated spyware piece of shit. I honestly just wanted Windows 10 to work. So again, I reverted back to Windows 10. I did have to wipe everything because I installed Windows 11 clearly. And I couldn't roll back, so I wiped Windows 11, I installed Windows 10, and since then I was just using it solely. Linux so far was actually quite a cool experience, but again it's not ready for the prime time, solely for the reason that the accessibility is not really good. On Windows everything is working from the start, you have to do that, it works just fine. On Linux it has tons of compatibility issues, sometimes you fire up the software it doesn't work, so you have to do workarounds by installing that. I did try to connect my SSDs, which were of course formatted under Windows. I did install them and I wanted to have them basically from the start working on Linux. On Mint, once I did that, the system completely crashed and it refused to launch, and apparently I was required to write some code into an fstab file, which basically confirms, yeah, these are actually safe to use, so do not do kernel panics and completely crash the operating system. That was very scary. Bazzite is completely different, it basically protects you from changing its kernel, but if you want to have disks like this, firing up from the start, you cannot do that because it won't allow you to. So you have to pick your choice. You either have Bazzite, which is quite locked down, it prevents you from destroying the system, but you can't really install anything on it if you want to be a more serious user. And you got Linux Mint, where if you do something, it might actually just completely destroy your system. So yeah, when it comes to this, Linux is not really for me. So yes, the Linux experiment is a failure for me. I tried Bazzite, I've tried Mint, I've tried some other distros such as Zorin OS, as you recommended in the comments everyone, it still didn't work out for me. Linux is not ready for use for me in the prime time. Still a lot of problems, for example Bazzite is really locked down, and Mint, if I try to do something, this whole system just ghosts up and crashes. So yeah, it was already foreboding me by just, corrupting my system, the drivers not working. It was just, let's say, a fun time. So I'm back now to Windows 10, although it's completely debloated, like 50% of it was just straight up castrated. And I've also, enabled ESUs, because after all I'm still going to keep my Windows 10 systems for quite some time. Thank you everyone for tuning in on my Linux journey video. Truth to be told, it's quite disappointing that it ended in a failure. I've tried multiple distros and in the end, still nothing. So I've gone through Arch Linux, I've gone through Zorin OS, I did try Nobara just a bit, Mint and Bazzite. 5 distros, all of them failed on me. I did think about using Pop OS, but honestly after just switching 5 distros and still not being satisfied with the content, I just straight up gave up. Hopefully maybe 2 years down the line everything will be better, the experience will be smoother and we'll finally have some proper support for software. Hopefully down the line everything is going to work well on Linux and the experience won't be as brutal as it was for me. Just trying to install it, everything just crashes. Trying to install it, the drivers are missing or kernel panics and stuff like that. It's just annoying. I want my system to work and everything to just work fine. For, let's say, gaming, yes, Bazzite is not really a problem, but if I want to use my PC for something else, it's really a bust. Well, that is that. Can't dwell too much on this. I know it's a failure, but nonetheless, it was an interesting experience. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to throw a thumbs up, and if you didn't, there's a dislike button nearby. Don't forget to click the subscribe button so you can receive more content just like this, hopefully not failures, just like this Linux experiment. And let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I'm really interested to know what have I done wrong, what have I goofed up, what in general do you think about my whole journey. I'm really interested to know what you think about this. This was Chris, thanks for tuning in on this Linux experiment. Stay on edge.